morning, fellow Scouters. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the BSA Scout Breakout. My name is Doug Ulrich, and I am the Scoutmaster and co-founder of Troop 747. And I'm going to see if I can hit the share screen button here. And do we see a slide there? You got that? All right, very good. So welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I am definitely not the biggest expert in the room, but I am the guy that council reached out to and said, hey, you have a troop, why don't you talk for a breakout session? So here I am. And there's a picture of my license plate from Sunday morning, just 4 days ago. We went camping at the Pepper Sauce Campgrounds near Oracle, Arizona, and had 3 inches of snow on the ground by the time we left in the morning. So that was a fun time packing up in a driving, windy snowstorm. So that was good times. So we're going to talk about onboarding new scouts. So over the next hour and 45 minutes, we'll get, just kidding. This is going to be short and sweet here, folks. But we are going to encourage you to unmute if you have a comment or an additional idea. We definitely want to get the collective wisdom of everybody in the breakout room. When we're talking about onboarding new scouts. So in my mind, there's 2 kinds of new scouts. There's those Webelow crossovers. You know, the Webelows have been around. Some of them have been in scouts for 5 years already, or something like that by the time they get to your troop. And then you've got those new rookies because one of your scouts invited their buddy to come on a camp out or come to a troop meeting, and they joined the troop and they know nothing about scouts. They've never heard of the Scout Oath or Scout Law and that kind of thing. So really kind of 2 different approaches for some of those guys. For those Webelows crossovers, hopefully you get the chance to welcome them at a pack crossover ceremony. So hopefully you're able to be there when they have their crossover ceremony and join your troop officially. But obviously, if not, then you can welcome them when they get to your troop. But I really prefer to be there if I can and welcome them and shake their hands and you know, we give them their scout neckerchief and everything. I've seen different troops do different things. Most troops will, you know, present a new scout with a troop neckerchief. Sometimes you've got a neckerchief slide or woggle if your troop has a specific one. Obviously, you can use whatever they've got already, but nice if you have that. Some troops will hand out that numerals patch. So my troop, for example, has our nickname embroidered on our numerals patch. So all the numbers are right there. They don't have to go to the scout shop and buy it. So we'll present that to the new scout when they join us. In my troop, we also, at the crossover ceremony, we'll also put on those green shoulder loops. We'll take the blue ones off, put the green ones on in their place. And then we also give our new scouts a scout handbook. So that's an option, but it's fun to write, you know, gift from the troop in the front cover of the book. If that's something you want to do, we cover it with a new scout fee when they join our troop. So we cover the cost of the book that way, but we pay for the neckerchief and the slide and the numerals patch and the shoulder loops, but that's just my troop. And then some troops, you know, have a Class B troop T-shirt or a troop hat. You can present those if that's something that you do, or, you know, if that's something you charge for, you may get that later. But those are just some ideas. Some troops present these items to new scouts that are rookies that have not been in Cub Scouts, and others don't. So I'm looking forward to hearing what some of you folks do. Is there something different that's not on this list that you give to a new scout to welcome them to your troop? So if you have an idea, take your microphone off mute and holler at me. And because I'm in slideshow mode, I don't see any chat. If there's any chat, I don't see that. But Jacob, comment?
You know, another thing that sometimes I've seen, these are all great ideas. sometimes I've seen people do in addition to the scout book, or instead of the scout book, doing the BSA field book, or books that are focused on camping skills or knots or things like that. Just other things that sort of enrich and enforce the scouting skills is a possibility as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, also, Jacob, Tom here, and Doug, a unit that I was with a number of years ago, they gave, as they crossed over, basically the same thing that you're talking about. And when it came to the neckerchief, they handed them the official BSA troop neckerchief, the ones that you buy at the scout shop with the red or the blue, and they got the arrows of the black on them. But they had an official troop neckerchief that was all embroidered and doo-wahed up, that once the scout went to their first camp out, they got awarded that neckerchief at that next meeting, at the next troop meeting. And that was something that they could kind of look at and say, wow, yeah, I like this idea. I've got some gifts and everything. And then once I'm there, I'm all excited anyway. Here's a couple of other tokens as they go along their trail. And then in addition, I met a kid at a camp one year that he was wearing a name tag, a plastic name tag with his name on it and the troop number. And I said, wow, that's interesting. Does your troop give those out to everybody? He says, no, not to, well, he says, yes, they do, but they give them when you make first class.
Nice.
Then they give you a name tag for your uniform. So that was another one of those interesting things that, as you go along, I thought, wow, all these years later, I'm still thinking about that. And I think, what a great idea, because you don't see kids wear name tags anyway. You don't see adults wearing name tags, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Much less the kids.
Well, and what's nice about that is when you, just as a concept, when you get to first class, you're at that point where you're really starting to be a teacher of younger scouts. And so having that name tag creates a point of connection where that younger scout can engage with that older scout and work on an advancement and know who they're talking to.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea.
That's a great point. I did read about one troop that they did similar to what Tom's talking about with the neckerchief, except that they gave it what they call a temporary neckerchief, probably like you said from the scout shop, at the crossover ceremony. And then once the scout achieved the scout rank, once they earned that first patch, then they traded in the neckerchief for the troop neckerchief. So they got the patch and the card for achieving their first rank, but they also got the new neckerchief, what they call the permanent neckerchief. So similar kind of thing. I like the camp out idea because I'm a big believer in getting those new kids out on a camp out, as soon as possible.
Well, it was kind of nice. And then of course that troop neckerchief, the initial one, goes back into the bin. So it's recycled. It's not it's not something they keep, and they don't want to keep it because they want the official neckerchief.
Yeah, they want the troop neckerchief with the bling on it.
Yeah, they want the doo-wah thing. You bet. You got that right.
Absolutely. Very good. Any other comments on that? All right. So at the troop, at the troop level, when a new scout first comes to your troop, so maybe they're at the Webelos camp out, Webelos crossover, but that's at the pack meeting, right? And if your troop meeting meets separate, for example, I don't have a feeder pack at all. So when a Webelos scout comes to my troop, or a new rookie scout comes to my troop, they're kind of walking into the room, and this is a big deal. So we generally will introduce them to the entire troop. We'll bring them up front, tell everybody their name, make a big deal about it, make them feel welcome. I thank them for joining the troop, and we make them feel pretty special. The whole troop, claps and cheers for them, and makes them feel welcome. In my troop, the thing that we will do Not always on the first day that the scout is there, but usually within the first couple of weeks. My goal is to sit down and do a little orientation with the scout and with parents as well. I don't want to do it just with the scout, because you tell an 11-year-old a bunch of information and they'll forget most of it. So that's why I want mom or dad there. If both parents can come, that's great. But I'll have them bring their scout handbook with them. And then I'll explain the handbook to them. We'll go through and, I'll show them in the back, here's where the rank advancement are. And I show them the different ranks. Here's scout, here's tenderfoot, and so forth. And then I show them, and I don't have it in front of me, but requirement number 3 is recite the Pledge of Allegiance from memory and then describe what that means to you. So I asked the young man, or I asked the scout, do you know the Pledge of Allegiance? And they usually do, and they spit it right out. And then I said, what do you think that means to you? And they'll tell me, and then I'll immediately sign off on their book. So you just knocked out one of your rank requirements for the scout rank. Nice job. See how easy that was? And so I'll show them how to do that. And then if it's something that they don't know, for instance, they don't know the scout law because maybe they're a rookie scout, never went to Cub Scouts, don't know anything about it, but it'll say right there on that advancement page, the scout law is on page 12 of the scout handbook. So then I'll flip back to page 12 and show them where it is. And so I make it easy for them to understand that they don't have to know all this stuff, but they have to know where to find it. And the book tells you where to find it.
You got a call?
Do we have a comment? Or just somebody who's off mute? All right. And then I'll flip back and show them the merit badges, all the merit badges that are available. Talk to them about the process, explain, and I'll show them. I'll bring a copy of the merit badge application, the blue card, show that to them and tell them, when you want to work on a merit badge, you're going to come to the Scoutmaster, you're going to ask for a blue card, and we're going to talk about that and so forth. So I explain how the merit badge program works, and I explain, that there's a whole bunch of them and there's all kinds of them. Some of them they might be interested in, some of them they might not be, some of them they might not be interested in until they do the merit badge, and then they find out they're fascinated by it. And we tell them that, I'm honest with them. I tell them some merit badges are harder than others. They're not going to get the camping or the hiking merit badge in their first month in the troop. That's just not going to happen. But some of them are easier to get. And so we go through that and explain that. And then we talk about the patrol method and what a youth run troop means. We talk about, the patrol leaders and the senior patrol leader and how they interact with the Scoutmaster and how they can get their questions answered, talking to their patrol leader and not coming to the Scoutmaster every time they have some little comment or question or something like that. So we explain what all that means. And I want the parents to know that as well, particularly if they're Cub Scout parents. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I've had Cub Scouts come to visit the troop because they have to go visit a couple of troops before they join one, before they get their Arrow of Light. And I see this deer in the headlights look from the parents because it looks like organized chaos. And they're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And why is the Scoutmaster sitting on a chair in the back of the room? He should be up there running this meeting, and I have to explain to them what the words youth run means. And I explained that, I could run a tighter ship. I could run a meeting that starts on time and ends on time, and the boys would be bored out of their minds. So we let the youth do it. And then we talk about the parts of the BSA uniform. And I believe there's a page in the Scout Handbook that talks about that, but we describe what that is. And, in my troop, we talk about the fact that we have a troop neckerchief and a neckerchief slide. We have a specific woggle that the Scouts in our unit wear, and that we expect them to wear that as well when they're in that field uniform, that Class A uniform. There's the shirt and the belt and the pants and the socks, but we're also looking for that neckerchief and the neckerchief slide that matches it, so they look like everybody else in the troop. Hence the word uniform. And then we talk about where and when uniforms are worn. In my troop, we wear our uniforms to the regular Tuesday night meeting. We wear our uniforms when we're traveling to and from a camp out or a hike or whatever that is. It doesn't matter what we're doing while we're there, but when we're traveling, we're almost always in that Class A uniform. And so we explained that that's the expectation. And I'm we've since the beginning of our troop 16 years ago, we've been pretty consistent about it. And I tell them, you know, I expect that when you get out of your car in the parking lot, when you get to the church, you're already in that uniform. Don't come into the room with it unbuttoned and untucked, because that's not in uniform, in my opinion. So we explain what that means and what that looks like and what our expectations are. And they don't have a problem with it once they understand what the expectations are usually. And then a lot of times I will do an orientation. Usually at that point, I'll cut the scout loose if they don't have any questions. And then we'll go through some additional orientation with parents, talk about a medical form, what it's required for. And usually I'll hand them a blank copy and say, you know, here, we're going to need you to fill this out before your kid goes on the first camp out, for example, that kind of thing. We talk about fundraising, which different activities we do. And in our troop, we typically will have a split. So, you know, for example, with popcorn, if the scouts sell popcorn, whatever the commission is that the troop gets, 75% of that goes into the scouts account. 25% of it goes back to the troop, so we can buy merit badge patches and that kind of thing. So we'll explain what those splits are. Sometimes it's 100% for the scout in his account. And sometimes it's not, it just depends on what the fundraising activity is, but we'll explain how that works and how they can utilize the funds that's in their scouts account and those kind of things. We'll talk about camp out protocols and fees, and, you know, what time we usually leave, what time we usually get back, how the fees are determined, what those fees might be, that kind of thing, kind of explain that. We talk about summer camp, and I always encourage new scouts to go to summer camp. It's a huge learning curve. It's a huge growth opportunity. But we realize that not all parents of 10 or 11-year-old scouts are willing to turn their kid loose for 7 days or 6 days at summer camp. And we know that, or some of them just flat can't afford it. To write a check for $450 is a tough thing to do sometimes, but we highly encourage that. We talk about what summer camp is and what they do there and what kind of opportunities there are and that kind of thing. And then we invite them to our troop committee meeting. We invite all our parents to the troop committee meeting, whether they're registered leaders or not. We encourage them to come and check out what's going on with the troop and how the troop is operated and that kind of thing. And then again, I'll explain to those Webelos crossover folks, we explain how BSA Scouts is different than Cubbies. And, for example, mom and dad aren't going to sleep in the tent with Junior anymore because that's not how it works when you're in BSA, right? And why the youth are running the meeting up front, those kind of things. What do you folks do? Anything in the past 2 slides, anything that you folks do that's different when you're doing orientation for scouts and orientation for parents? Any comments?
This is David Sharon from 828. I normally have my committee chair talking with the parents. As a Scoutmaster, I make a brief introduction. This is who I am. I deal with the scouts. Committee chair deals with the adults. So with that, then I depart and kind of supervise the chaos.
Very good.
And there is a troop flyer that has the committee chair, Scoutmaster, and I think an assistant Scoutmaster's name, so that they walk away with something to remember our troop. So as you said, they visit many troops. I want them to have something in their hands that reminds them of my troop.
Mm-hmm.
As well as we have a 8.5 by 11 calendar. Hey, here's what we planned for our scout year. These are the type of activities we're doing, so the adults can see it. And they have it, they take it home, and this is what this troop's doing. They're organized, they have a plan.
Yeah.
So that's 2 cents I'll add.
Right. Very
Maybe
good.
a
Thanks,
quarter. It's inflation.
Any other comments?
Doug, I joined late, so if this was already said, I apologize for repeating it. I like when I'm helping units and I'm helping out with recruitment events and activities, I really like to set the expectation early that this is a team effort. And some volunteers, some of these families really want to help out on a weekly basis and they want to be an assistant scoutmaster. They want to help with this, that, or the other. Other families, that might not fit for what you're doing, but we've got an opportunity for you somewhere. So from day one, I try to start with a many hands make for light work. And this is the expectation. Over the course of the year, we're going to give you a chance to help out with something.
Yep, that's a really good point. Really, really good to set that expectation level right up front. My troop is a little different probably than most troops in a couple of ways. One is that we have a troop committee that absolutely rocks. I've got a fantastic treasurer. I've got a great outdoor activities chair. I've got a committee chair that's second to none. And I did the committee chair for 6.5 years, so I know what it takes to do that job. And my current committee chair is far better than I ever was at it. But setting that expectation up front. The other thing that's kind of different about my troop is that my chartered organization does not want to register new parents that are brand new to the troop. They don't want to make them registered adult leaders immediately, because they want us to get to know that new parent, get to know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and figure out where a good fit might be, what kind of role they might fulfill. So, we don't automatically make them committee members or assistant scoutmasters. We wait a few months to see who they are and that kind of thing before we do that. That's just because that's what our chartered org has asked us to do. However, in light of the new rules that are coming down September 1, with terms of adult registration, we may be changing that rule because that's going to be something that maybe won't work.
Yeah, Doug, we do similar. We use the Scouter Reserve in that mode, so they're registered so they can go on the campouts if they want to. But to be an ASM or a committee member, we want to see what they're like before we officially grant them that.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's a good
but
tool for
to
that.
Davis's point, I think it is a great, get them up front, and really, there is an opportunity for all the parents to get involved, whether it's merit badge counselor or what have you. And one of the things that we always point to is the statistic that goes around ever so often, even in roundtables. The scouts with parents that at least one parent involved are the ones that tend to go the farthest within scouting. So it opens the eyes of many parents as we get going.
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, when I tell the adults, hey, we're not going to register you immediately, I let them know about a troop that I heard about that, the minute the new parents join, they say, hey, congratulations, welcome to the troop. You're now in charge of the fundraiser. And they immediately put them into a leadership role. You're in charge of the fundraiser, make it happen. Here's 1,000 camp cards, and here's the rules, and they turn loose.
We've actually started to pair parents with the official chair, like fundraiser chair, right? Well, you don't have to be fully in charge, but help the person that is in charge. And so they get used to how things are done, because that is daunting, and you need a new fundraiser chair. Nobody volunteers, but this way you have quite a few that at least have some experience with it.
Yeah, at least they have a clue.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Doug, Tom here. Beginning, I just thought of something else. I was with a unit on crossover. You talked about crossovers, and they did a crossover out here in the West at one of the county parks, and there was three different troops that were receiving scouts that night. And it just so happened, for those of you who remember the Scoutorama days, it was the day before the Scoutorama, so they did it on Friday night. And what they did was they took the new Weeblos, and they already coached them and the parents on that. And they said, bring your camping gear. They took them immediately out, and they did an overnight camp right there at the crossover. And then the next day they went to Scoutorama, and they said, parents come and join up with us after breakfast. And when we get there, we'll be there about 9 o'clock or whatever it is, and then spend the day and take your kids home. But they got that first camping experience that very first night. Not only did they get crossed over, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm staying overnight with the big guys. And I thought that was pretty cool deal.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. I haven't heard of
Didn't mean
that.
to digress way back to that. So
That's
sorry,
all right.
we'll move
That's
forward.
all right. Talking about parent involvement, I read about another troop from out of state, and in their parent guidebook or whatever you call it, they said, expectations, they expect every family to drive and participate, drive scouts and carry gear to at least 3 outings in each year. So that's how they spread it around. That's how they made sure that it wasn't the same drivers every time. They wanted every family to participate and every family to drive scouts to an event. And they wanted them to stay there and camp with them. They didn't have to go on the big hike or anything, but they wanted them there. But I can see where that might have some problems, because if you've got that single mom who works on weekends, she's not going to be able to take scouts on 3 outings. And if she has a small car, she may not be able to take more than 2 scouts or something like that. But anyway, different troops have different expectations, that kind of thing. So David already mentioned this. Actually, I don't know if he saw my slide coming up, but he already jumped on it. Consider items that you might hand out to new scouts or new parents. And I kind of misspoke earlier. I told you that at the crossover we'll give them the neckerchief and the woggle and the epaulets and the scout handbook. But I saved that number patch. I saved that numerals patch with our troop number for that first scout meeting that they come to at the troop level. And then when we bring them up front, I hand them that patch so they walk out of that night with a new gift. They immediately go to mom and say, let's sew this on, but that's something that we do on that first night that they're with the troop. But for new scouts and parents, I have business cards with my name, email, and phone number on it. So I make sure every parent has one of those. You might have a troop roster that has contact information. So, they can contact their patrol leader, or they can contact an assistant scoutmaster or contact scoutmaster. And then if your troop has a new parent guide or troop bylaws or something like that, I know a lot of troops have something like that. David was talking about, the calendar of events and some of those kind of things, some of those expectation level documents. Obviously, you can hand that out, and definitely the calendar of events, so that they can take that home and match that up with their family calendar and work calendars and so forth, and they can plan ahead. We never have scouts in my troop that where the parents come in and say, you guys had a camp out last weekend, how come we didn't know about that? That's never happened, because we publish our calendar every 6 months, and we make sure that everybody's got it. So if they didn't know there was a camp out last weekend, that's because they're not paying attention. Not to mention the fact that we talk about it for the 2 weeks prior to that camp out. So we've got lots of opportunities to share that information with folks. Any other handout items that you folks give out? Just things to help people remember. Those parent guides, a lot of times they'll have kind of an explanation of the patrol method. They'll have expectations levels on fundraising and behavior and that kind of thing. My troop years ago, we had I think it was a 17-page set of bylaws that described every possible thing going on and what we're going to do about it. And then we finally figured out, what? If the scouts follow the scout law and the scout oath and the outdoor code, we don't need 17 pages of bylaws. They just need to follow those 3 things, and everything will be all right. So we don't really hand out that set of bylaws anymore. But kind of a new parent guide that explains, here's how merit badges work, here's how rank advancement works, some of those kind of things, because they're not going to remember everything you might say in an orientation. Might be good to have something to send them home with. Any other suggestions? So you got these new kids here. They're in your troop now. How are you gonna keep them? How are you gonna keep them in the troop? As I mentioned before, I make a big deal about their arrival. You know, we bring them up front. A lot of times on their first night, we'll bring them up front, introduce them to the whole troop at the beginning of the meeting. And then we'll bring them up again at the end of the meeting. That's when I'll give them that numerals patch and thank them for coming and that kind of thing. Your new scout needs a buddy, preferably one that's a higher rank, that's been around for a while, that knows the drill. Maybe a couple of buddies is a good idea. And then I had one of my parents suggesting having a buddy system for the new parents and help them navigate the ways of the troop because it's different than the ways of a Cub Scout pack. You know, they have lots of questions. If you've got a Scout unit parent coordinator, obviously that's a good person for that. But maybe if you've got 3 or 4 new parents, maybe assigning a mentor parent to each one of them just for the first couple of months to kind of help them get their feet wet and that kind of thing, and answer those questions and tell them what's going on. That can be really helpful. I think the best way to get a Scout engaged is to get them on a couple of campouts, right? Get them out there, get them out in the woods, like Tom was talking about, having them camp with the very first night they're a Scout, a BSA Scout, on their very first camp out. That's awesome. I had a Scout that was with us. He was with us for a year. He didn't really advance in rank, but he never went on a camp out. Not in 12 months, he didn't go on a camp out. And it's hard to do much if you only come to a meeting a couple of times a month at the church. You know, you need to get out there and get out in the woods. That's where the action really happens. And then, as I mentioned before, summer camp, huge. I want to get them to summer camp if at all possible. They will come back excited about Scouts from that generally, and help them get a relatively easy merit badge. I have 2 sons. They were both in Scouts. They both made Eagle. They were both senior patrol leaders. But the younger Scout, just because of the way it was working out and what our troop was doing, the very first merit badge he worked on was aviation. And turns out there's quite a bit of work for aviation, especially for an 11-year-old. Some of it's a little bit more complex and that kind of thing. And he hated it. And he told Mom, I never want to do a merit badge again. And we said, now, wait a minute, they're not all the same level of difficulty, you know. And then a month or 2 later, he went over to the Scoutmasters house, the man that was Scoutmaster at the time, and they worked on the leatherworking merit badge, and he got it in one afternoon. And he had fun. And he said, oh, maybe I can do merit badges. So, you know, if you can help them get one of those merit badges that doesn't kill them. Like I said, hiking's probably not the first one they're going to work on. One of the citizenship's probably not the first one they're going to work on. Definitely not personal management, but get them a merit badge and get them that patch. Because we have a saying in my troop: Scouting is all about the patches. We want the patches, right? And then help them get going on that rank advancement. The first time they get that rank advancement patch, get that Scout patch, to get that tenderfoot patch. They get excited with that sense of accomplishment, and they are ready to stick with it. Any other suggestions? What best practices does your troop use to welcome the Scout to your troop, to keep them engaged, to get them engaged and keep them engaged? What do you folks do that I haven't talked about?
Hey, Doug, this is Rob Gibbs from Troop 653. I think you hit on something that's super important. That first camp out is absolutely key. We keep spare gear in the troop trailer just in case. It's always one that is, you know, well, I shouldn't say always, but it's always a good one. We prefer it to be a really solid one that maybe we've done before, that we know we're going to get a lot of participation on anyway. Flag X is a good one. The big one, I think the big one that they were all excited about because we told them in advance was we're doing a kayak, the kayak trip right below the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River. They're all just, all of them are all like, oh, we're totally in for that. So they were excited to even show up. But that first camp out where you can have a lot of Scouts doing a lot of things together, they make those social bonds because, you know, they they show up because, well, this is what we do after Cub Scouts, but they stay because of their friends, right? Because they make friends.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great comment, Rob. I appreciate you making that comment. You know, in my troop, we've always gone to Geronimo for summer camp, and we've always gone up in the spring to do our service project for the camp. So we go in March or in April to do that Geronimo service project. So that way we don't have to do it while we're at summer camp in the middle of June, because I would much rather have the scouts shooting a bow and arrow or paddling a canoe rather than doing a work project when they're at summer camp. I want them experiencing all that fun stuff. But we invite those new scouts to that Geronimo Service Project weekend. We invite the parents to come as well. We kind of make it a family camp out. Invite the parents. If they want to bring little sister with them, that's fine, or whatever. And then typically we will do our service project in the morning. Usually we're spending the morning and the afternoon on the service project. So the way I like to do it is we'll go out and do the service project in the morning, make those young guys do the work right alongside the older boys, you know, and then we come back and have lunch in the campsite and relax for a little while. And then when it's time to go back and finish up the project, I'll take those new scouts and their parents, if their parents are willing to go, and we will take a tour of the camp. So we'll do the totem to totem hike. So they're earning a patch before they've even gotten to summer camp, because I'll give them that patch for doing it. But we give them an entire tour of the camp, and I've been in Geronimo many, many times, so I know all kinds of little factoid trivia stories about it and that kind of stuff. So I'm their tour guide, and we show them the Spade Ranch House, we show them Staff Hill with where the staff sleeps, all of those different things around the camp, and kind of get them the lay of the land. So then when we come back to summer camp, they're like, oh yeah, I remember, that's where the pool is, and that's where the climbing tower is. And they kind of have a clue about where they're going and that kind of thing. And again, we get them excited about summer camp. Even if they're not coming this year, we want them excited about it so that next year they'll absolutely come to summer camp. Other comments? Other suggestions?
I would say similar to yours, Doug, we do like a family camp. We don't necessarily go to Geronimo, but we do a family camp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how it's going to work with the registration things now, but we like to invite the parents along. Now, the scouts are meant to camp with the scouts, so they're not camping with their parents at that point. And the parents actually get a good feel for what's going on at campouts too. So it makes them feel at ease. Being able to see how a troop camp out works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They see that their kid camps with the patrol and cooks and eats with the patrol, and they see how it operates, and they see that the adults are over here and the scouts are over there, but that we're still, we still have eyes on the scouts, they're still supervised, everybody's still safe and all that kind of thing. Then it really does give parents, I think it gives them a real sense for, okay, this is how it works, and I'm comfortable with it because I know my kid's going to be taken care of. So that's a great comment, Carl. Carl's troop is the only one I know that does this. Maybe there's lots of them that do it, and I'm just behind the times. But Carl's with 526 out in Glendale, and those guys, they take their new first-year scouts on their own summer camp experience. It's called Camp Big Red. And they take them out in the woods for 5 days and teach them all that. It's kind of like the Brown Sea Island program at Geronimo. They teach them all that scout rank and tenderfoot rank stuff, and get them, teach them how to use a compass and teach them how to do all kinds of things. And they put on their own first year scout summer camp program. And I think that's really remarkable. It's a really terrific thing about Troop 526.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, it's a great experience for them. It's also a great experience for the older scouts because they staff the camp. This is not run by, we have a few adults, obviously you got to have adults, but it's all staffed and run by the scouts working on those first rank requirements. So gets them out, gets them a little more familiar. It's not a big summer camp, because at a big summer camp, they can get kind of intimidated. It's more personal, and it gives them a chance to start working on those rank advancements, and gives us a few days, to work on them, not just not just 2 days or, during meetings.
Right. But they're also getting to know those scouts that are on staff. They get to know those guys
Absolutely.
really well, right?
Yes, absolutely. They come out having a lot more friends.
That's great. That's great. All right, other ideas, suggestions, comments, criticism? That's all I have, folks. That's all 9 slides. So that's all I've got for tonight. So unless anybody else has comments, or unless Davis or Ty, if you have anything that you want to share.
Thank you, Doug. That was fantastic. Thank you.
You bet. My pleasure.
I think Ty's recording. We're gonna kill that. We can chat about why